and begin repairing and regenerating the tissues that have been harmed. Sometimes it happens more quickly if there's not been a lot of injury. So Marcy began to create this lifestyle of health and take control of her life. As you can see, here's on the left is her MRI from November of 2014, and we're looking at her spinal cord. The circle that you see there is highlighting the spinal cord inside of the spinal canal in her neck. And as we look at that picture, we can see that there's a lot of white inside of the spinal cord. Normally, the spinal cord should be dark, but here it's patchy and white, and that's indicating inflammation, that our immune system is attacking the tissues of the spinal cord, injuring them, causing inflammation. And that inflammation is resulting in the tingling, numbness, and weakness in our arms and legs. Now we look at June of 2015, so 7 months later, after she had an intensive therapeutic lifestyle intervention, and the MRI of the cervical spine looks beautiful. You can see that it's kind of the gray dark is all one color. We don't see the patchy white any longer. All the inflammation has resolved, as did her symptoms. And from that point forward to today, she has remained symptom-free. Remarkable. And it was such a remarkable story that the specialist in Dallas that she had seen said to Marcy, I have never seen this before. I didn't know it was possible for somebody to go into remission with an intensive lifestyle intervention. And then here's a picture of her brain MRI. Again, on the left from November 2014, we see the large white spot there in the middle of the circle. And that is an inflammatory lesion inside the brain. Again, June of 2015, we see that inflammatory lesion has resolved. It's gone. All the inflammation in her brain completely gone. And Marcy today is vibrantly alive, symptom-free, and doing well. And this is what's so important. You know, I love to look at MRIs and lab work and see that things have changed physiologically and anatomically. But this is what's most important, that Marcy is vibrantly alive as a mother, as a wife, as a leader in her community, in her profession, sharing her gifts and making changes all over the area. And so this is why I'm so passionate actually about lifestyle medicine. I love the science. I love to write. I love to study it. I love to see the results. But what gives me the most joy is seeing somebody be able to step in and live their best life, have a more wonderful life. But the power of this lifestyle and the hope that it brings doesn't just stop with changed MRIs, improved blood work, feeling better, or even improved, or even the ability to live your best life in those incredible roles as a family member. But hope was multiplied in Marcy. She took a hold of that hope and her transformed life, and she began to share that hope inside of the hospital system and Midland as a city. She started a not-for-profit called Healthy City in Midland, Texas. And as a kind of coordinated group of people that came together, originally that started out as a potluck, they began to imagine a healthier community. They started community gardens and gardening projects in schools. Here's a picture. Other people were inspired. Dr. Padmaja Patel in the middle there also came to my CME event and the church event. And we began working together, and she saw hope for her own life, her passions as a physician. And we worked together, and she opened a lifestyle medicine center at Midland, Texas. And she's gone on actually to be the president of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. We worked together. We started a Food is Medicine conference that has run continuously through 2022 and will be revived again. But from 2015 on, conferences that reached 650 people every year inside of Midland, Texas, and inspired hope in those people that came. And so what's exciting about this is that, you know, when somebody grabs a hold of this and sees a different future and actually achieves that different future, the hope that led them down that path can be shared with other people to help them find a similar path to health and healing. Now, what's amazing, I love the science of hope, right? And science of lifestyle. As I was doing some research, they actually have identified the region of the brain where hope lives, which is pretty exciting. And it is in the orbital frontal cortex. So right above your eye, right here in your brain, is where they can identify hope on functional MRI scans. And hope is involved in reward-related processing. So that means when we're doing something that gives us a reward, that part of the brain is turned on. Now, when we have hope, like Marcy, when she saw a potential future for her life that seemed desirable and that there was no other pathway to get there, and she realized it was the pathway of whole food, plant-based nutrition and lifestyle, it turned on that part of her brain. And when that part of your brain is activated, it initiates motivation, which is really critical. It helps with problem solving. So as we're working on making a lifestyle change, we're holding on to a future hope. We can begin to see how to overcome challenges, going over obstacles, around challenges, solving problems. And it helps us to achieve those goals in a very meaningful way. So it's very exciting. Hope is necessary. And one of the ways to achieve hope is to take that experience of initially seeing a different future and imagining yourself in high definition in that future. It's called the future healthy self. And to see yourself vibrantly alive, living without disease, achieving the things that you want to achieve, sharing the gift that's been given to you and watching others' lives be transformed, because that meets the need in all of us of meaning and contribution. And so it's not just a wishful thinking. I wish I could be better. I wish I didn't have heart disease or diabetes. It's actually recognizing the science says that there's a pathway forward. I see amazing stories like Marcy's that tells me it's possible. And I'm going to begin imagining myself as that healthy, vibrant person. Now we're activating hope inside of our brain. Your brain is beginning to strategize, to see the pathway, to find and navigate the channels, the strategies, the tactics that it's going to take to get there. And you naturally begin to be pulled into that future that you imagined. And the obstacles that may have seemed insurmountable or too big, you find a way around them, up and over them, and you achieve that goal. So just a little bit more about the science of hope, just to let you know that what I'm talking about today is a critical component of a lifestyle change. So they found that when healthcare providers establish hope as a target outcome by telling stories inside of their office, it creates opportunities for both patients and clinicians to find meaning in their journeys. And I learned this early on in my practice as I was beginning to work with patients, and I was enthusiastic about the science, which you're all learning, epigenetics, angiogenesis, the microbiome, all of the exciting science of lifestyle and transformation that happens at our cellular level when we're eating plants. What's more important than delivering the science right away is to establish hope. And one of the most meaningful ways to establish hope is starting with a story. Starting with a story that is similar to the person or the patient that I was sitting with. And that establishes hope and creates an opportunity for people to begin seeing a different future. And it also creates meaning for the clinician and the patient. They also determined there's a biological signature of hope, that you can look at somebody's lab work and see a signature of hope in their lab work. And it's basically lower inflammation, that's IL-6. It's lower cortisol levels, and cortisol, remember, is that stress hormone that is released in our body when we encounter stress. And the body is agnostic to stress, the source of it. It responds to all stress the same way by releasing cortisol. can be relational stress, financial stress, not sleeping enough, even exercising too much is a stress on the body, eating unhealthy food. All these things are stressors, environmental toxins. Not only do they damage the cells, but they cause an increase of cortisol, which has a wide range of negative impacts throughout the body. Elevated endorphins, those are the molecules that come from our adrenal glands that make us feel good. After we exercise, we have endorphin release, and that is the kind of feel good and reduces anxiety and depression. Dopamine is released in the brain, and that's a natural part of our reward system. When we are engaged in like healthy relationships, pursuing goals, exciting activities, our body releases dopamine, and it gives us a positive reward for the activity. Hope does that. It releases dopamine in the brain and improved immune function. So when we have hope, our immune system naturally upregulates. Our immune system gets bolstered and functions more efficiently because we have hope. Now, high hope individuals showed diminished stress reactivity and more effective emotional recovery. So when people were walking with high hope because they saw a future vision of themselves and held on to it, they again had a much more resilient life of responding to stress, and they had more emotional resiliency as well, that internal strength to overcome some of those things and not be cast on the sea of the waves of emotion. And to contrast that, looking at some of the studies of hopelessness, when people can't see a way out of where they are, they feel trapped. And this is often the case for so many people with diseases today. They accept that this is what they have for the rest of their lives. The side effects, the loss of function, the challenges that they see on a daily basis. And that creates a sense of hopelessness. Things aren't going to get better. They often hear from healthcare providers, unfortunately, that things will only get worse. And so you develop naturally hopelessness in that situation. People that were hopeless during acute hospitalizations had a much stronger predictor of death than if somebody had hope. And why is that happening? We can just look above, right? It's when you have hopelessness, increased inflammation, increased cortisol, decreased dopamine and endorphins, and decreased immune function. All of the things that would be important in a healing journey if you're fighting an acute illness. Now, unfortunately, in many areas of life, we have naturally gravitated toward using fear as a motivator. It's easy to grab onto. It's easy to trigger a response in somebody with fear. And we have been falsely led to believe that if we try to motivate people with fear, we're going to actually motivate them to long-term change. But that's not true. If we all think back on when fear has been used as a motivator, it's a very short-term motivation. It actually activates us to a place of contraction rather than expansion. It narrows our action plans. It actually contracts our ability to think and plan and move forward. And so fear is a very unhealthy way to motivate people. In medicine, we often use this today. If you don't make changes, you're going to have a heart attack. If you don't take better control of your blood sugar, you're going to lose a leg. If you don't stop what you're doing, you're going to die. And anytime we try to use a negative as a motivator, it is not going to lead to long-term change. Sometimes you encounter people where they will tell a story that motivated them. But what really happened? They heard the fear, but then they began to see a different future, and they saw themselves healthy without that problem. And they created some hope for themselves rather than the fear being the primary motivator. Research has also shown that when people have positive messaging, they're more successful. two studies of hope and self-efficacy. The belief that a person can help themselves predicted their intention to take action against skin cancer. And again, that's the power of what you're learning in this conference. You can be empowered to take control of your life and your future by changing what you put on your plate, on your fingers, on your fork every single day. How you use your feet to move, how you use your words to speak life, how you use your breath to calm your nervous system, how you connect in meaningful community. All of those incredible positive choices that we can make every single day are also establishing hope because we're helping ourselves and we're helping others. And 3 ways to undo fear. So if fear has been planted in your life, things that you can do to overcome that is begin a personal action plan. And I'm sure during this event, you're getting lots of action plans, but just develop a simple, achievable action plan that you can begin working on a daily basis.